Hey everyone, it's Monday again at Slurv, and that means another Cash Game Cornerstones video for MLB. And then later on today, we've also got our rundown coming out with a brief written version of all of our info, some daily dong finder stuff, and then also the expert chat at 5 p.m. Eastern. So lots of stuff to be excited for today and to get you ready for tonight's slate. Which I think is a fun one. Been a little bit of disagreement among us in our early discussions of whether it's a good night or not for cash, but I think it is. Honestly, I feel pretty good about most aspects of it. It is a Coors night. We've got a game in Coors. The Blue Jays come to Coors, so that's something to definitely keep in mind. And pitching is interesting. I'll let Adam cover most of that, but I think there are enough options that are pretty safe and will let you get Coors bats in. So let's start off with talking about some bats, and one of my favorite cheapest bats from this Coors game. Well, let me talk about the Coors game in general a little bit. We got Estrada versus Gray. Not the most ideal matchup possible, but not that bad either. You know, I've seen a lot of talk about kind of fading Coors, and I'll be honest, I did a little bit last time, and it wasn't really that great. It was a bad call on my part, and I think it would be again today. It's still the highest over-under game. You know, Vegas likes them to score a lot of runs. We all know a lot of runs get scored in Coors. I don't see why we would be fading this game. The other spots today aren't that attractive to me anyway. So back to my favorite, or not my favorite, but one of the cheaper plays from Coors, and that's Nick Hundley against Estrada. Yes, Estrada is a fly ball pitcher. Yes, he's been generating a ton of infield flies. But honestly, his infield fly percentage is unsustainable, so that's not going to continue. And fly balls also are some of the most commonly hit for home runs. So if there's a little power behind these fly balls in Coors, in Denver, air is thin, balls fly further, I could see this getting a little out of hand for Mr. Estrada. Nick Hundley is only 3.2 on DK, which is just a little too cheap if you ask me. 3.3 on FanDuel. I really don't see any reason at all to go beyond that at catcher. If you absolutely must, I would do it with a guy like Miguel Montero, and I wouldn't do it on DK. Just no reason there at all. He's 3.4 on DK. He's only 2.2 on FanDuel. So that's the only case that I'd really do it, to take a huge savings at a position like catcher. But even on FanDuel, I don't see any problem with just going Nick Hundley. So I mentioned I'm not too afraid of Estrada. John Gray is a very, very good pitcher in my opinion, but he is much, much better against right-handers than he is against left-handers. So I don't have too much problem taking left-handed Blue Jays against him. The problem I have with that is there aren't too many left-handed Blue Jays. So if Justin Smoke makes the lineup, he's been injured and there's no DH, so they might well put E5 at first base anyway. If Smoke is in there, then I'm very interested, but I don't expect him to be. E5, I'm not interested. He's 5,500 on DK and some other expensive amount on FanDuel, and don't like him. Don't like him so much. But I find it's a good place for once to actually save some money. I don't normally like paying down at first base, but these guys still offer the kind of upside that we look for in a first baseman. Tommy Joseph gets Robbie Ray, who's pretty good against left-handers. He gets beaten up by righties. So righties on Philly are very interesting to me. 3.1 on DK for Joseph is a great price. 3.0 on FanDuel is a little bit less attractive, but not much. I also like Freddie Freeman against Bauer. Bauer, too, struggles way more with lefties and is kind of due for some regression there. He's kind of been pitching above his real ability, and he's certainly priced above it at 12.8 on DK today. I like his spot in general, but not at that price for sure, and I definitely like Freeman and Atlanta lefties, but mostly Freeman, for 3.5 on DK and 3.1 on FanDuel. And then on FanDuel only, Eric Hosmer against Wainwright is very interesting at 3.3. 4.2 on DK, meh. But I'm not interested in Mark Reynolds because I'm just really not very often interested in Mark Reynolds, and he's fairly expensive today, which are just two combinations that I don't like. And there's just these great cheaper options there, so I think that's a perfect place to save and let us get the expensive Coors bats that we really want in. Second base to me is as easy as it comes. DJ LeMahieu is injured. I don't expect him to play today. Trevor Story is injured. I really don't expect him to play today. But that opens up some wonderful value for us, even though it's not great for them. Sorry, guys. Hope you get better. But I expect, and it's in some projected lineups as well, both Daniel Descalso and Christian Adames to be in the lineup today. So that means that we get Descalso, who's a lefty, against Estrada for 3.1 on DK, really nice price, 2.9 on FanDuel, equally nice price. He's also first base eligible. I personally wouldn't go that route, but you could. And Adames is second base eligible, but also shortstop, which is where I will mention him. But if you absolutely must go somewhere else, you just cannot take a guy against Estrada, you hate Daniel Descalso, Odor against Nova is where I would go there, but only on FanDuel at 3.4. He's 4.9 on DK, which is just too much to consider in this case when we got options like Descalso available to us. Third base is a spot where I'm interested in paying up, and that is for Nolan Arenado. I don't know why you wouldn't, honestly, unless you can't afford him. I mean, he's the play at third base. I think he's far better than Donaldson given the matchup. 5.4 on DK is very expensive, but some, Descalso and some of the other guys can help you save the money to get Arenado in your lineup. He's 4.6 on FanDuel, same situation. Again, if you absolutely must fade this, I like Michael Franco against Ray. I mentioned that Ray is not very good against righties. Franco's only 3.6 on DK, which is kind of expensive, but a huge discount from Arenado. And 2.9 on FanDuel is just a really, really cheap price. So I'll start out shortstop by saying I expect Troy Tulowitzki to be very popular. I mean, he's always a popular guy, always over-owned in my opinion. He's been actually playing well the last couple weeks since he came back from injury, and he's back at Coors Field. It's a revenge game. I'm not interested. I'll just put that out there. I don't mind if you play him almost just as a block because I expect him to be everywhere in cash because he's only 4,300 on DK and 3,800 on FanDuel, which is probably too cheap. But again, I do not like his matchup with Gray one bit, and I would much rather play Christian Adames against Estrada on the other side for 2K on DK, just min salary. It's absolutely beautiful. And 2.4 on FanDuel. So, I'm not going to judge you if you play Tulowitzki today, but I can't imagine myself doing it at this point of the day. In the outfield, as I often do, I kind of have pairs of teammates, and I certainly do not mind playing both of these guys in lineups. The first is Cargo and Blackman against Estrada, probably my favorite. Do not hate playing both if you can afford it. If you cannot, actually, I don't know which I would prefer if you can't. I think Cargo. I think Cargo. But Blackman has been so hot lately that it's hard to make that call right off the bat. Cargo is 5.3 on DK and 4.1 on FanDuel is nice price there. Blackman's 5.2 on DK and 4.4 on FanDuel. On FanDuel, I think it's easier for me to say I prefer Cargo. On DK, it's more of a coin flip, or at least something I need to research more. And on the other side of that field, which I like, Coors Field, is Michael Saunders, who is much better against lefties than. Well, he is really good against lefties, but that's not what I'm getting at. Totally lost my place in this because John Gray is a righty, but my point was John Gray is not as good against lefties as he is against righties. He's much worse against lefties. So that puts Saunders squarely in play for me. He is expensive, but I don't mind that. I think we can find the salary with some of the mid-low range pitching options that are mid-low price pitching options, I should say, that are really in pretty good spots. I'll throw Colin McHugh's name out there, but Adam will cover that, and we'll talk about it in the expert chat and all that stuff. So Saunders is 4.9 on DK and 4.6 on FanDuel. As I mentioned, expensive. But there's also Ezekiel Carrera, who I also like, 3.8 on DK and 3.8 on FanDuel. I like both of them, honestly. My initial lineup that I put together had both of them in it. So if you're playing guys from Toronto, I think it should be almost exclusively the left-handers, and that's pretty much these guys, unless Smoke makes it in the lineup. And then also, if you want to get away from Coors Field or just need some of these savings, because they're pretty nice prices, we got Mazzara and Chu up against Ivan Nova, who it does have a lot of ground balls, but I don't know, he's also given up kind of a decent amount of hard contact to lefties. These guys are guys that are likely to hit to that short porch in right field, so we're looking to get a short right field home run out of these guys. And Mazzara is only 3.4 on DK and just a silly 2.8 on FanDuel, so I really like him on FanDuel if you need to save a little money in the outfield. Chu is 3.8 on DK and 3.3 on FanDuel. I don't mind mixing in either one of them on either site. And then one last guy I'm going to throw out for you. Watch the weather in this game because it is one of the bigger concerns, and that is Curtis Granderson against Joseph Ross. Ross can definitely struggle with lefties, and moreover, I think that Washington's park is very favorable for the way that Granderson typically hits the ball. I think his chances of hitting a home run in this park are significantly elevated over, say, his home park in Citi Field. So that's definitely something to consider. He's 3.8 on DK and 3.6 on FanDuel, so pretty nice prices there. I don't mind him as a differentiation piece to get away from Coors Field or either of the Texas guys. But that's about it for the cash game Cornerstones for today. Kind of a long one. Had a lot of Coors to talk about and a lot of reasons why you should play Coors. Come on back later for the rundown with updated advice based on weather and more research throughout the day and all that. And then later at 5 p.m. Eastern, we got the expert chat going on, and you can come by for my daily Dong Finder article, which will probably be featuring a number of these guys in it. And other than that, good luck tonight, guys.